So the scene for wild card game number 3, the elimination game, the winner, with a date in the land of the cheesesteak and the tasty cake in the National League Divisional Series. The loser getting a trip to Cancun. I assume you were watching, but maybe you missed it. And if you love a good pressure cooker, any deciding game, I'm into it. Now, a lot of these do not live up to the billing. A lot of these blow. This was not one of those. This was a humdinger of a game. Although it was pretty boring for a while. Nobody scored the first part of the game, but they made up for it in the late innings as Pete Alonso, free agent, he can be yours if you overpay him. Pete Alonso hit a majestic go-ahead home run, a 3-run blast, barely over the wall, off the Brewers, I say this in air quotes, closer. Way to close out the season. Devin Williams in the 9th inning. The Mets swarmed the Brewers late like locusts. They put all 4 runs up in that last inning, and they win 4-2 after the Brewers hit a couple of home runs. And it's like, here we go, the Brew Crew, here we go. No. So the Mets get it done. The Metropolitans now have advanced in the playoffs for the first time since I barely remember. I was barely here. It was like 2015. It was so long ago, 2015, when they won the National League pennant, only to go belly up after that. But they move on now. Best of 5 divisional series. That begins on Saturday. While you're watching college football, the Mets and Phillies will be having a hootenanny in Philadelphia. The NL East champion Phillies and 2 geographically desirable opponents. The fan bases can travel back and forth. All right, now, but the better story, you know where the better story is. That's right, the losing locker room. Oh, the agony of defeat. So let us discuss who has to wear the defeat all over their face for the Brewers. So I've got butterflies, crossfire, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make hindsight being 2020. And hindsight being 2020, the Brewers probably should have pitched somebody else other than Devin Williams. I don't care what his numbers were. That guy choked the big one. Now, one of the great role models in my life when I was a child was Dr. Seuss. And Dr. Seuss taught me that sometimes the questions are complicated, but the answers are simple. In this case, it's all about simplicity. The question is simple. The answer is simple. Who gets to wear this defeat all over their face for the Brewers? Well, it's like finger painting. Yeah, like a child in kindergarten finger painting. They put the paint all over themselves. That would be the aforementioned Milwaukee closer, Devin Williams, who started getting butterflies in his stomach. There were 2 outs away from closing out the Mets, the Brewers. And then he needed an emergency barf bag on the mound. He ended up suffering motion sickness watching the Alonso home run leave the yard. And as they like to say at the magical kingdom of Disneyland, my man Devin Williams had a protein spill all over the place. Puke-o-matic. And so the Mets, they are who we thought they were. Highest payroll in baseball, and they're trying to play the role of underdog. Got to love that. And the Brewers let them off the hook. All right, the moment was too big. It's one of the reasons we love playoff baseball. Who's going to poop their pants and who's not. And Devin Williams pooped his pants. And Pete Alonso, to his credit, did not. He stepped up. He hit the home run. I still wouldn't pay him. I don't think he's that good. He's getting older. But somebody's going to pay him, and that's going to encourage the Mets. Every round the Mets win, there is more pressure to pay the polar bear, and they will demand. There will be an uprising among the fans in Long Island there if they do not pay Pete Alonso, if they go all the way to the National League Championship Series and eventually the World Series. Now, page 2 here. How do the Francisco Lindor Metropolitans match up with Philly? We'll peek ahead to the National League Divisional Series. So I hate saying this because I want to help out guys like Mark and Queens and the other Mets fans that listen to the show, but this is a sneaky good spot. Am I wrong? Am I being unrealistic here? I was on with my buddy Bob Fesco on his show this week. We talked about playoff baseball. They're all excited in Kansas City because of the Royals and all that. And so we were talking about playoff baseball and like what's the secret formula and all that. But you look at this series, you've got star power on both sides. You got Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor versus Bryce Harper and Trey Turner or Kyle Schwarber, any of those guys. But the crossfire, and here's where it is, right? You talk about this matchup, is the great debate. Is it rust or is it rest, right? Small sample size. They've only been playing this format of the playoffs for a while. So you've got the Brew Crew who were eliminated by the Mets and say, well, the Mets pitching staff's all messed up and all that. But I would still say going into this, the Mets have an advantage, and here's why. All right? Here's why. They've been in action. I don't believe in momentum. I don't think there's carryover from what happened in Milwaukee on Thursday as opposed to what's going to happen on Saturday. I don't believe in that at all. But they've been playing baseball, which is a everyday activity with maybe 3 days off a month. The Phillies have not. They've been getting their rest, right? They're getting their rest, and so chances are they will come out a little sluggish. Things won't be right. Not everyone's going to be on their game. So our hypothesis is that the wild card series winning team that ends up getting in that groove, and they have an advantage over the teams that have the bye and are iced over because they're not doing their normal routine. We're all creatures of habit. The other factor here, and I want to run this by you. If you're a baseball fan, call up later and tell me what you think of it. So my theory is I'd rather be on the road in the playoffs, assuming two things, right? Assuming two things. I have a decent bullpen, good closer, right? That's number one. And number two, I've got a lineup that can score early in a game. Because and it didn't happen in this series per se, like the Brewers scored first, the Mets came back. But more times than not, the team that scores first, the other team suffers from tight tuchus syndrome. Yeah, their keister tightens up there, their badunkadunk, and it's like a golfer the last day of a major where they just have all kinds of issues. And it puts more on the home team. The fans start booing, and they turn on the home team, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we'll see if that plays out or not, but that's where I am on the National League Divisional Series, the Mets and the Phillies. Now, the last word. Let's move all the way up, 20,000 feet in the sky. Wide-angle lens. Wide-angle lens. So here we go. We're not into the League Championship Series, but we've got the Divisional Series. You got the drama, the heroics, like Pete Alonso hitting that home run, right? Legacy-defining moments that have already happened and some that will certainly happen going forward. So what are you most excited about to watch as we settle into the divisional round of the playoffs? So I'm going to start on the American League side of the bracket. To me, the most compelling, most fascinating story is in the Bronx. The biggest Bronx bomber of them all, bigger than life, is facing his Arnold Schwarzenegger moment. Ergo, Terminator 2, Judgment Day for Aaron Judge. Can Aaron Judge slay his many postseason demons? Batted under 200 last year. His career batting average 211. Very choppy playoff performer for the Yankees. That's not the Yankee pedigree. And can you imagine what's going to happen? They lose to the small market Royals. That would be a gigantic blotch on his resume. And then you add on top of it, the Mets, should they beat the Phillies and they get, everyone knows, we're going to have the Subway Series again and all that. Well, if the Mets advance and the Yankees can't get by the Royals, watch out. And then for Kansas City, you got Bobby Witt Jr., who's already a shooting star. And he has a chance to elevate his market value, his endorsement value, if you care about that kind of stuff. If he can take down the Yankees, the pinstripes, right, with standout performances. And they don't have much else in that lineup, right? They're not very good offensively, Kansas City. They're going to have to squeeze together runs, which you can win like that if your pitching's great in the playoffs, and they end up going to the League Championship Series. Watch out. And then as far as like Cleveland and Detroit, I'm not going to lie to you. It doesn't interest me that much. But in L.A., it's showtime nationally. Shohei Ohtani. Now, I looked this up, and I think I'm saying this right. Now, in Japan, you would call him the Niku Dengo, the meatball, right? The big meatball, the big Niku Dango of the regular season. Going to win the MVP award in the National League. He's got amazing endorsement money and all that. Everyone kisses his ass. They put him on a pedestal, and rightfully so for his offensive power as a designated hitter. But now is the point of validation, right? Now is the point of backing up that you're not just a regular season player. And as they used to market baseball, they said legends are born in October, right? The playoffs. But at the same time, frauds are exposed. Guys that can't handle it, that get that flop sweat and just cannot deal with the spotlight in that moment. So Ohtani's going to have a shot here with the Dodgers against the Pod Squad starting this weekend. So I'm interested to see how he does. The good news is he only needs 2 RBIs to pass his old buddy Mike Trout by for career runs batted in. So the bar is not that high. The bar is not that high to at least pass Trout by on the playoff stat sheet